All right, let's talk about tuples. Tuples, like it says here, are used for grouping data. And grouping data is so helpful sometimes. We know what a function is. You all remember functions? We made functions already? How many things can a function return? One item. One thing only. But what if I want to return Paris Hilton 1981? That's two items. So really I can make a tuple and return one tuple which contains two items. In Java, you think of it as a class. You could literally return a class. That class could contain multiple values. So it's kind of, if you have other languages, it's kind of like a class, like an object-oriented way of doing Python. If you think of it that way, you should be good. We're going to walk through these examples in here, because some of them are pretty cool. Okay. They're not cool like drawing a turtle cool, but I know. I was thinking a way I could have done this in a turtle, but it was like, I wouldn't have really done much. Okay. I don't know, whoever wrote this book, isn't Paris Hilton been in like 3 examples so far? Yeah. Okay. All right, so if I run this, okay, it didn't do nothing. But what I should be able to do at this point is type year born, and it should return the values of my tuple. Tuple is just a combination. Okay? So up here, we created a tuple called years born, which contained 2 data items. It's not a list, because lists all have to be the same data type.
Can I make a list of tuples?
Yes, you can. You can make a list of tuples. And I actually made a list of lists. But in that list of lists, I had a list. So I had a list of lists of lists. It got too confusing. I was like, I'm lost. And it wasn't a good plan. So, all right. So very easily, we created something. It's really just a data structure to hold it. Even says over here, it's a data structure. We do not offer a class here called data structures. That's normally offered at the bachelor's level. It's where you study all these different types of structures. Okay? And it's really only if you're a computer science major. Any computer science type majors in here? Like one of you? Data structures is awesome. I love that class. See, I love programming. So, we were sitting down there talking in the office the other day, and they're like, Ken, what do you really like to do to relax? I said, truthfully, I love to write Python code. I'll literally sit there. I was at home the other night, last Friday night when there was a football game. I was writing Python code to encrypt passwords. Doesn't that sound relaxing?
No. Stuff that's like when you can do it easy, but then when you can't figure something out.
But that's what I like. See, I like the part when I can't figure it out, because then what happens is I think about it so much. I go to bed at night, then at 2 in the morning I jump up, I run in there real quick and I write the code real quick. Then I go to sleep. Okay, so a data structure, a mechanism of grouping or organizing data to make it easier to use. So normally if I wanted to store Paris Hilton and the year I guess she was born, that would be 2 different things. Okay? This way we can store them all in one. Easy enough. Okay? It says a pair is an example of a tuple. So generalizing this tuple can be used to group any number into a single compound value. It says syntactically a tuple is a comma separated sequence of values, although it's not necessarily that it has to be done that way. Like here we can have Julia Roberts and a bunch of different stuff. These would just be the movie she was in. Okay, we're not going to type all that one. Okay. Actually, let's type that one. Actually, we're going to copy it. I'm just going to copy it. I don't feel like typing it. I'm too lazy. So I'm going to put that right here. If I run this one, literally I just copy it right out of the book. If I type Julia, I get all of Julia's values. Now, what if I want to return Julia 0? What do you think I'm going to get? Julia. So if I return Julia 1, I should get Roberts. Whoops. So if I return Julia 1, again, I'm doing this inside the interpreter. What if I return Julia 5? What am I going to get? Let's see. I'm going to get whichever is off the screen that I can't see. Actress. Okay. So it's stored very similar to like a list. But in the way that it's not a list is that it's not all the same data types. Okay? All right. So easy enough there. So we can very easily print out certain ones. Now, this area here, let's try this same area they're doing. They're going to say, again, I'm not in my code, I'm actually in the interpreter typing this. Julia it's like, I cannot do that. In other words, I cannot just go in and replace a value like that. Okay? So it's kind of like a read-only type of thing. Okay? So to try to use item assignments, we cannot get it. We get an error, which same error they got there. So like strings, tuples are immutable. We can read them. We just can't write to them. Okay? Once created a tuple in memory, it cannot be changed. So could that become problematic? Yes, it could be. It's like a constant. Okay? So there are ways around it, but you can really take your tuple and actually create another one, changing a value. So you could do that. If you want to modify the elements, you can always make a Julia variable. Okay, reference the new tuple holding different information. Like I just said, you can literally create a new one. Okay, not a problem at all. So over here, they're literally overriding the Julia tuple. Actually, let's type this one in. I'll just put this into my interpreter rather than into my program. And now if I type Julia, what it did was it created a new tuple called Julia, which is equal to the first three elements of the existing Julia tuple plus new stuff. See that? So we can overwrite it. We can't go in and say change element 1 or change element 0 or change element 5. We can say create a new one and replace element 5 with this. Kind of the same thing. Okay? It's just a little bit different. Okay, so to create a tuple with a single element, but it's not, why would you do this? Again, why I don't know why you would do this. Include a final comma, because with a final comma, if you do it without it, it just thinks it's an integer. If you just said tup is 5 without the comma, it'll be like, okay, tup is equal to the integer 5. Actually, let's do that. We can just type it right in here. Tup equals, we're going to leave off the comma to see what we get. You see, I literally just have an integer 5. Then you can bring this line down just by clicking on that line and hitting enter, then putting a comma. And now if I write tup, I actually get a tuple of 5. Okay? If we want to see the type of it, type of tup, it says it's a tuple. I'm going to bring this one back down here. Now we're going to see what it is again. And what should it tell me when I hit enter now? What? It should say int, class integer. So basically, without the comma, it thinks it's an integer. With the comma, it thinks it's a tuple. Easy enough. Right? Could you work with Python your entire life without ever messing with tuples? Sure, you can. It's kind of one of those things when you learn a new skill. I mean, you could do without it, but you learn new skills to hopefully make your life easier. There's a game I'm working on, or I'm participating in. It's called Bandit. It's an online game to teach you SSH. Some of you might know what SSH is. Secure shell. Okay. Well, inside there, I had to find a file that was a hidden file that was a certain size, that was human readable only, and I'm like, there's a new command I never knew of called du. It was amazing. did all this stuff exactly what I was looking for. If I had never learned that, yeah, there's other ways around it. It just made it a lot easier. So you don't need tuples, but there might be a use for them someday. When I went to University of Tulsa, I had to write a Java compiler. I wrote it in Java, but actually compiled Pascal code. I wrote the entire thing using, I think, an array initially, and then I converted it to something else, and finally that still didn't work, and I finally converted it to a vector. Oh, and that solved my entire life. Solved all my problems. So, just try with different data types and different things, and it's kind of cool. All right, so Python says a very powerful assignment feature. Let's do this one. This one's kind of cool. I'm going to just copy this code, and I'm going to put this one over into my actual program if I can find it. So you just have something to turn in today. Okay, so I'm going to put it in here. Okay. What this is telling me is name is going to be the first element of my tuple, surname is going to be there, so on and so forth. And I think I can actually put this into, actually in this case we're going to go assign it to a B. Oh no, to Julia. Okay, we're going to assign it to Julia. So just looking at this, does it look like, initially right here, we created a tuple assigning it values. Everybody okay with that? Now here, we're doing it backwards. So what we're really doing is that tuple we've already made, we're defining what's at each location. We're giving them a name. So rather than referring it to as Julia 0 or Julia 1, now we can just say name. Let's run this. Now I should be able to say name, and it tells me Julia. I should be able to say surname, should say Roberts. It's kind of like we're taking our data and providing details about it. We're giving it, information about it. Literally, I copied that right out of the book. Okay? Let's see how that works. So I could type M year, M_year, and it'll tell me 2009. Okay? Could I still type Julia 0? What do you think? Yeah. Sure. But what is easier to remember, Julia 0 or name? Name, obviously. It's just a way to make our life easier. Okay? Okay, that's a tuple assignment feature. It says this does the equivalent of 7 assignment statements all on one easy line. Okay, let's do that again. This time we're going to use Bob. Okay, and I'm going to put him into my code over here. I'm just going to type Bob. I'm going to run it. And I did. And now if I type B, I should get Bob. Okay. Nothing new there. Just instead of Julia, now we have Bob. Okay. But we can also do that thing here. The tuple unpacking, they're calling it. I don't know why they call it that. It's kind of a weird name. But if I go back into my code, okay, and I run this, and again, now I can literally type in name, studies, so on and so forth, and get the value. Excuse me. So this is creating my tuple called B. They call it unpacking, but we're really assigning names to the different elements of it. Let's read their explanation of it. One way to think of a tuple assignment is think of tuple packing or unpacking. In packing, the values of the left are packed into the name, and unpacking, the values of the tuple on the right are unpacked into the variable names. Okay. Easy enough so far? Yes, sir.
So on the code, we write, the first one was with Julia, and we unpacked it with name, surname, all that. And we did it with Bob.
All right.
When we type in name, why doesn't it say Julia and Bob?
Because we overwrote it. So when running our code, now when we type in name, it's just going to say Bob. Because what we did in this unpacking stage, we said, hey, name is now referred to the tuple B first element. If I went in here again, let's do this again, and leaving my code in there, now say I make this C, and we'll call this, Sam. And I could do the same thing again, and it's going to overwrite that, and now when I type name, I'm going to get Sam. It's whatever's last. Now, if I...
So what if you wanted to write name and then have all the names from above?
You would actually have to have a list inside there. Instead of just Bob, you would actually have to be assigning a list inside of this. Like a list inside of a tuple. You could do that.
So name would be actually...
Yeah, but this wouldn't be the right data structure for that. Yeah, it definitely would not be the right data structure. Okay. But what you could do is you could do, let's try this. This will be name 3. This will be name 2. This will be name 1. Okay? So now when I run this, and I type name 1, I should get Julia. Type name 2, I should get Bob. Name 3, I should get Sam. It's because I didn't use the same names when override. That's one bad thing. See, this right here is the assignment operator. Whatever's in there, it overwrites it. And even though we're unpacking here, we're still saying, hey, this name, if there's anything else called that, we're overriding it. That's why I'm a real big fan of not using the same names. It's like in Java, you can pass a variable to a method or a function, and you can literally use the same name because the scope of the variable still works perfectly. But I don't like doing that because people can get confused like you and say, hey, how come it's now saying Bob instead of Julie? Because you're overriding it. So, okay? Hopefully that kind of explains that. Okay. Let's do this next one. Let's do temp equals A equals B equals 10. I don't even know if this is going to work. No, it doesn't work because it doesn't have a value. Why don't they give me some of the value? Okay, let's give it some values. We'll say A equals what number? 25. Okay. So now if I run this again, now it should work. Or did it error? No, we're good. Now I should be able to type A. That's not what I expected.
Yeah, because it switches the B with the A.
Because we made A and B equal.
Oh, okay. Phew, okay. I was freaking out for a second. I'm like, where did I? Okay, it was because I'm using B up there. Okay. Good point. Yeah. What we said was A is 25. Then we're saying temp is equal to A. So in other words, the value of A gets assigned to temp. And then we're overwriting A with the value of B, which in this case was Bob. Yeah. So the D or something would have been fine. Okay. All right. But we could also do this. We could also say A comma B equals B comma A. Okay. See if that one runs. There we go. And that's another way to swap them as well. Swapping variables is kind of important. Some you can actually write methods or functions to swap things. A lot of people do that. But this tuple thing just gives us a way to do it. Okay. All right. The last section here, what they're saying is you cannot swap a 4 with a 3. Because it's kind of missing something. Hey, we need more of them. Okay. The best part about them is tuples is return values. So functions can always only return a single value. But by making the value into a tuple, we can effectively group together and return. My part I'm writing when I'm writing the thing to generate passwords, I have to return like 5 different things. So I'm really assigning them all into a single variable. I technically could just put it into a tuple, and that might actually even be easier. I might want to do that. So if you put all the variables into a tuple, then you can return the tuple, which includes all the variables. So kind of a a cool way of doing it. Okay. So here we are writing a return function that we want to return the circumference and the area. So they receive the radius, they calculate the circumference. Actually, let's do this. Let's make this code. I always like making code. So I'm going to just stick it down here. So how can I call this to see if it does anything? Anybody? I could just print F, but I need to do something else. What else do I need to do? I need some sort of radius. Come up with a radius. 5? B. Alright. So, in this theory... Oh, we got to include math, don't we? It's import math, isn't it? Can I do it right there? Yes, I can. Nice. Now you end up getting 31.41599, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Could I now send it a different radius? Sure can. Since I've already loaded it in there, so I could say a radius of 0.1. So obviously it's working. It's returning a tuple of two different values. Now here's the question. Can I do this? If this works, what should I get? The first element? Maybe? Let's see. Yes, it worked. So since the tuple actually contains two elements, I wanted to send it the radius of 1, but only see the first element. So I already see some great uses for this. So now if I want to see just the second one, I could do that. And I should actually be able to perform mathematical calculations on them. What now? Yes. Yes. 1, comma 1. Is that right? No, got something wrong. I need this. So now it should actually take the first and the second and multiply. So you can actually do math on the results. So kind of cool that you can do that. It's just, am I the only one that think this is awesome? The rest of you aren't even going to listen. You're just like, stop doing this. You're driving us crazy. Just make a turtle. Jeez, that's all we want to do is make turtles. I know that's what y'all are saying. All right. Composability of data structures. What in the heck? This is kind of what you talked about. We saw earlier that we can make a list of pairs. And it says, and we have an example of items in a tuple was itself a list. So we have students. So by this, what does that mean when we start with something like that? Square bracket. A list. So students is going to be a list. And that list is going to be made up of a tuple that contains John and a list. So it's going to be a list that contains a tuple where a portion of the tuple is a list. Isn't that crazy? I'm going to try. Let's type this in here. I'm just putting it down at the bottom here just for the heck of it. Let's see what we get. Okay. Now, I literally just copied that code. So now if I type students, I should get all of my data. Okay? So what if I type, since we know that's a list, what if I type students 0? What should I get? Will I get John, or I will get John computer science physics? Correct. But now what if I type students 0, 0? That should just be John. But what if I type John 0, 1? Should I get computer sci physics? since the first element of my list is actually John up here, that's 0, this is 1. So shouldn't I get all of that as number 1?
Yeah.
And I did. So, but, see, here's where it gets confusing. You see, I got that. So what if I want to return students 0, then the second element of it, but the second element of that? What should I get? Physics. Yes, it worked. So it's really a list of tuples of the lists. Whew. So you see, it can be done. I literally wrote a program that did lists of lists of lists. And you get so confused in all those, like, what in the heck? So looking at this, I'm going to put in a value. I want you to tell me what it's going to do.
Oh, no.
And I want number 2.
Okay.
Number 2. Number 2. What am I going to get? Don't run it and cheat.
It's not going to work, is it? Because there's not a
Not gonna work.
there's not a third element
Does not
in number
work.
2.
Some bitch. Sorry. All right. Fine. Okay. There. Now. There.
Economics.
Will I get economics?
Economics.
I hope so.
All right. Let's see. Yes, I did. So basically what we got was Jess, which is the third student, 0, 1, 2. Then the second element of Jess of that tuple is comp sci accounting, economics, and management. So this says, of that second element of the tuple, give me the third element of the list, which is a portion of the tuple. Phew. Economics. Isn't that handy?
No.
No.
Come on, you don't see... Don't you guys think of uses for this stuff as we cover it? Like,
Filing like a giant list of data would be very handy.
oh yeah, most definitely. Because what do we have? The problem, I mean, one of the biggest problems at the school right now is incorrectly declared majors.
Oh, my
Oh.
God.
That is the biggest issue. We get funding and everything else based upon majors. But it never fails. I'll have my digital forensics class, which is required for my degree only, and I have a health science student in it. Or a nursing student. I'm like, what the? Oh yeah, I'm cyber now. Well, why didn't you change your major?
Oh.
So, and if you enroll online, it puts you in degree seeking. What good is that?
This dude, I went and talked to him and told him what I wanted my major to be. And he was like, okay, I'll get that taken care of.
They never did.
He never did it.
Exactly. It's a pain in the ass. They don't. And then when I go to look at my majors, I'm like, well, Ken, why are your majors low? No, they're not. They just haven't been fixed yet. Yeah, because now that everybody rolls online, you all end up being degree seeking. Then it's like, great, we got to manually declare all of you again. Yeah. All right. So now we see we can have a list of tuples of lists. So technically, we could have a list of tuples of lists of tuples. We could go on forever. When I first took my I think maybe it was my second. I don't know. One of my early programming classes, we had to write a program to simulate a car wash. It had to randomly figure out how many cars are entering the car wash. Then they had to randomly pick the car wash they wanted. Randomly pick how long they were willing to wait in line. Depending on if they picked the car wash that was available and they got to the front of the line before their waiting time expired, then they either ate a Brussels sprout sandwich, or they drove over the bucket. And I had to write a program to store all that stuff in one data element. So that was like a 5-dimensional array. You know, 1-dimensional is like a list, and 2-dimensional is kind of like a box, you know, rows and columns. But 3-dimensional is rows and columns in depth. 4-dimensional, you can't do that anymore. And 5th, you can't even, but by doing that assignment, got me to understand that you can't always visualize these things visually, because you can't. I mean, literally, this is a list of tuples of lists that can literally, those lists could have more lists inside of them, because technically, maths right here is what? It's a list of characters in a string. So it's really a list with tuples that has a list inside of it, and that list contains lists. So it's a list of tuples of lists of lists. So it's,
Hurting my brain.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so that's our tuples. Isn't that exciting? I just, see, originally he wasn't going to cover, he didn't have to cover this chapter, but I think this chapter is amazing. You can tell the stuff I like. So, today, submit something that shows you did something. I would like to see, like, some of your code in here, just something from all this. Okay, I'm not picky what it is. Just show me you at least followed along somewhere.
Do you want it to be a picture or do you want it to be?
And pictures are so much easier. Just do picture. So give me a picture of your code.
Does that have to be all the code?
No, just portion of it. Just portion of it. Just something that shows that you at least followed along a little bit. Again, all we did is we copied it right out of the book. That's all we did. So, all right. All right. Okay. So that's all I'm going to cover today.
It's P, right?
Trouble with tuples?
Yeah.
Yes. Even though you don't know what that means?
Yeah, Tuple with trouble. Tuples. Tuple with tuples.
Oh, it's not trouble?
No, it's Tuple.
Oh, I misspelled it. It was supposed to be trouble with tuples. So it's tuples with tuples? That sounds even better, though. Tuples with tuples.
It sounds like you have a list.
I do. All right. So, yeah, submit that, then you're good. You can get out of here.
Christmas is next month.
All right.
There's
All right.
a billboard on 73rd Street.
Everybody can leave except for Steven.
And it says,
Oh, I need you to
and it says,
Steven's required to stay until 1:45 to work on remedial tuple troubles. No. All right.